Vlad was the second legitimate son of Vlad II Dracul, who was himself an illegitimate son of Mircea I of Wallachia. Vlad II had won the moniker Dracul for his membership in the Order of the Dragon, a militant fraternity founded by Sigismund of Luxembourg, King of Hungary. The Order of the Dragon was dedicated to halting the Ottoman advance into Europe. Since he was old enough to be a candidate for the throne of Wallachia in 1448, Vlad's time of birth would have been between 1428 and 1431. Vlad was most probably born after his father settled in Transylvania in 1429. Historian Radu Florescu writes that Vlad was born in the Transylvanian Saxon town of Sighisoara, then in the Kingdom of Hungary, where his father lived in a three-story stone house from 1431 to 1435. Modern historians identify Vlad's mother either as a daughter or kinswoman of Alexander I of Moldavia, or as his father's unknown first wife. Vlad II Dracul seized Wallachia after the death of his half-brother Alexander I Aldea in 1436. One of his charters, which was issued on January 20, 1437, preserves the first reference to Vlad III and his elder brother, Mircea, mentioning them as their father's firstborn sons. They were mentioned in 4 further documents between 1437 and 1439. The last of the 4 charters also refers to their younger brother, Radu. After a meeting with John Hunyadi, voivode of Transylvania, Vlad II Dracul did not support an Ottoman invasion of Transylvania in March 1442. The Ottoman Sultan, Murad II, ordered him to come to Gallipoli to demonstrate his loyalty. Vlad and Radu accompanied their father to the Ottoman Empire, where they were all imprisoned. Vlad Dracul was released before the end of the year, but Vlad and Radu remained hostages to secure his loyalty. They were held imprisoned in the fortress of Egregaz, Imit, according to contemporaneous Ottoman chronicles. Their lives were especially in danger after their father supported Vladislaus, King of Poland and Hungary, against the Ottoman Empire during the Crusade of Varna in 1444. Vlad II Dracul was convinced that his 2 sons would be butchered for the sake of Christian peace. But neither Vlad nor Radu was murdered or mutilated after their father's rebellion. Vlad Dracul again acknowledged the Sultan's suzerainty and promised to pay a yearly tribute to him in 1446 or 1447. John Hunyadi, who had by then become the regent-governor of Hungary in 1446, invaded Wallachia in November 1447. The Byzantine historian Michael Critobulus wrote that Vlad and Radu fled to the Ottoman Empire, which suggests that the Sultan had allowed them to return to Wallachia after their father paid homage to him. Vlad Dracul and his eldest son, Mircea, were murdered. Hunyadi made Vladislav II, son of Vlad Dracul's cousin, Dan II, the ruler of Wallachia. Upon the death of his father and elder brother, Vlad became a potential claimant to Wallachia. Vladislav II of Wallachia accompanied John Hunyadi, who launched a campaign against the Ottoman Empire in September 1448. Taking advantage of his opponent's absence, Vlad broke into Wallachia at the head of an Ottoman army in early October. He had to accept that the Ottomans had captured the fortress of Giurgiu on the Danube and strengthened it. The Ottomans defeated Hunyadi's army in the Battle of Kosovo between the 17th and the 18th of October. Hunyadi's deputy, Nicholas Vizakni, urged Vlad to come to meet him in Transylvania, but Vlad refused him. Vladislav II returned to Wallachia at the head of the remnants of his army. Vlad was forced to flee to the Ottoman Empire by December 7, 1448. Vlad first settled in Edirne in the Ottoman Empire after his fall. Not long after, he moved to Moldavia, where Bogdan II, his father's brother-in-law and possibly his maternal uncle, had mounted the throne with John Hunyadi's support in the autumn of 1449. After Bogdan was murdered by Peter III Aaron in October 1451, Bogdan's son, Stephen, fled to Transylvania with Vlad to seek assistance from Hunyadi. However, Hunyadi concluded a 3-year truce with the Ottoman Empire on November 20, 1451, acknowledging the Wallachian boyars' right to elect the successor of Vladislav II if he died. Vlad allegedly wanted to settle in Brasov, which was a center of the Wallachian boyars expelled by Vladislav II, but Hunyadi forbade the burghers to give shelter to him on February 6, 1452. Vlad returned to Moldavia, where Alexandril had dethroned Peter Aaron. The events of his life during the years that followed are unknown. He must have returned to Hungary before July 3, 1456, because, on that day, Hunyadi informed the townspeople of Brasov that he had tasked Vlad with the defense of the Transylvanian border. The circumstances and the date of Vlad's return to Wallachia are uncertain. He invaded Wallachia with Hungarian support either in April, July, or August 1456. Vladislav II died during the invasion. Vlad sent his first extant letter as voivode of Wallachia to the burghers of Brasov on September 10th. He promised to protect them in case of an Ottoman invasion of Transylvania, but he also sought their assistance if the Ottomans occupied Wallachia. In the same letter, he stated that when a man or a prince is strong and powerful, he can make peace as he wants to, but when he is weak, a stronger one will come and do what he wants to him, showing his authoritarian personality. Multiple sources, including Leoniko's Chalka-Kondyles's chronicle, recorded that hundreds or thousands of people were executed at Vlad's order at the beginning of his reign. He began a purge against the boyars who had participated in the murder of his father and elder brother, or whom he suspected of plotting against him. Chalka-Kondyles stated that Vlad quickly effected a great change and utterly revolutionized the affairs of Wallachia through granting the money, property, and other goods of his victims to his retainers. Vlad sent the customary tribute to the Sultan. After John Hunyadi died on August 11, 1456, his elder son, Ladislas Hunyadi, became the Captain General of Hungary. He accused Vlad of having no intention of remaining faithful to the King of Hungary in a letter to the burghers of Brasov, also ordering them to support Vladislav II's brother, Dan III. Against Vlad, the burghers of Sibiu supported another pretender, priest of the Romanians who calls himself a prince's son. The latter, identified as Vlad's illegitimate brother, Vlad Călugărul, took possession of Amelis, which had customarily been held by the rulers of Wallachia and Transylvania. Ladislas V of Hungary had Ladislas Hunyadi executed on March 16, 1457. Hunyadi's mother, Elizabeth Szilágyi, and her brother, Michael Szilágyi, stirred up a rebellion against the king. Taking advantage of the civil war in Hungary, Vlad assisted Stephen, son of Bogdan II of Moldavia, in his move to seize Moldavia in June 1457. Vlad also broke into Transylvania and plundered the villages around Brasov and Sibiu. The earliest German stories about Vlad recounted that he had carried men, women, children from a Saxon village to Wallachia and had them impaled. Since the Transylvanian Saxons remained loyal to the king, Vlad's attack against them strengthened the position of the Szilágyis. Vlad's representatives participated in the peace negotiations between Michael Szilágyi and the Saxons. According to their treaty, the burghers of Brasov agreed that they would expel Dan from their town. Vlad promised that the merchants of Sibiu could freely buy and sell goods in Wallachia in exchange for the same treatment of the Wallachian merchants in Transylvania. Vlad referred to Michael Szilágyi as his lord and elder brother in a letter on December 1, 1457. In May, Vlad asked the burghers of Brasov to send craftsmen to Wallachia, but his relationship with the Saxons deteriorated before the end of the year. According to a scholarly theory, the conflict emerged after Vlad forbade the Saxons to enter Wallachia, forcing them to sell their goods to Wallachian merchants at compulsory border fairs. Vlad's protectionist tendencies or border fairs are not documented. Instead, in 1476, Vlad emphasized that he had always promoted free trade during his reign. The Saxons confiscated the steel that a Wallachian merchant had bought in Brasov without repaying the price to him. In response, Vlad ransacked and tortured some Saxon merchants. According to a letter that Basarab Laiotă, a son of Dan II of Wallachia, wrote on 21 January 1459, Basarab had settled in Sighisoara and laid claim to Wallachia. However, Matthias Corvinus supported Dan III, who was again in Brasov, against Vlad. Dan III stated that Vlad had Saxon merchants and their children impaled or burned alive in Wallachia. Dan III broke into Wallachia, but Vlad defeated and executed him before April 22, 1460. Vlad invaded southern Transylvania and destroyed the suburbs of Brasov, ordering the impalement of all men and women who had been captured. During the ensuing negotiations, Vlad demanded the expulsion or punishment of all Wallachian refugees from Brasov. Peace had been restored before July 26, 1460, when Vlad addressed the burghers of Brasov as his brothers and friends. Vlad invaded the region around Amlas and Făgăraș on August 24th to punish the local inhabitants who had supported Dan III. Constantine Mihailovic, who served as a janissary in the Sultan's army, recorded that Vlad refused to pay homage to the Sultan in an unspecified year. Tursun Beg, a secretary in the Sultan's court, stated that Vlad only turned against the Ottoman Empire when the Sultan was away on the long expedition in Trebizond in 1461. According to Tursun Beg, Vlad started new negotiations with Matthias Corvinus, but the Sultan was soon informed by his spies. Mehmed sent his envoy, the Greek Thomas Katabalinos, also known as Yunus Bey, to Wallachia, ordering Vlad to come to Constantinople. He also sent secret instructions to Hamza, Bey of Nicopolis, to capture Vlad after he crossed the Danube. Vlad found out the Sultan's deceit and trickery, captured Hamza and Katabalinos, and had them executed. After the execution of the Ottoman officials, Vlad gave orders in fluent Turkish to the commander of the fortress of Giurgiu to open the gates, enabling the Wallachian soldiers to break into the fortress and capture it. He invaded the Ottoman Empire, devastating the villages along the Danube. 86. He informed Matthias Corvinus about the military action in a letter on 11 February 1462. He stated that more than 23,884 Turks and Bulgarians had been killed at his order during the campaign. He sought military assistance from Corvinus, declaring that he had broken the peace with the Sultan for the honor of the king and the Holy Crown of Hungary, and for the preservation of Christianity and the strengthening of the Catholic faith. Having learned of Vlad's invasion, Mehmed II raised an army of more than 150,000 strong that was said to be second in size only to the one that occupied Constantinople in 1453. Mehmed had granted Wallachia to Vlad's brother, Radu, before the invasion of Wallachia, showing that the Sultan's principal purpose was only the change of the ruler of Wallachia. The Ottoman fleet landed at Brăila, which was the only Wallachian port on the Danube, in May. The main Ottoman army crossed the Danube under the command of the Sultan at Nikopol, Bulgaria on June 4, 1462. Outnumbered by the enemy, Vlad adopted a scorched earth policy and retreated towards Targovist. During the night of 16 to 17 June, Vlad broke into the Ottoman camp in an attempt to capture or kill the Sultan. Either the imprisonment or the death of the Sultan would have caused panic among the Ottomans, which could have enabled Vlad to defeat the Ottoman army. However, the Wallachians missed the court of the Sultan himself and attacked the tents of the viziers Mahmud Pasha and Isaac. Having failed to attack the Sultan's camp, Vlad and his retainers left the Ottoman camp at dawn. Mehmed entered Targovist at the end of June. The town had been deserted, but the Ottomans were horrified to discover a forest of the impaled, thousands of stakes with the carcasses of executed people. Tursun Beg recorded that the Ottomans suffered from the summer heat and thirst during the campaign. The Sultan decided to retreat from Wallachia and march towards Brăila. Stephen III of Moldavia hurried to Chilia, now Kalia in Ukraine, to seize the important fortress where a Hungarian garrison had been placed. Vlad also departed for Chilia, but left behind a troop of 6,000 strong to try to hinder the march of the Sultan's army, but the Ottomans defeated the Wallachians. Stephen of Moldavia was wounded during the siege of Chilia and returned to Moldavia before Vlad came to the fortress. The main Ottoman army left Wallachia, but Vlad's brother Radu and his Ottoman troops stayed behind in the Bergen plain. Radu sent messengers to the Wallachians, reminding them that the Sultan could again invade their country. Although Vlad defeated Radu and his Ottoman allies in 2 battles during the following months, more and more Wallachians deserted to Radu. Vlad withdrew to the Carpathian Mountains, hoping that Matthias Corvinus would help him regain his throne. Matthias Corvinus came to Transylvania in November 1462. The negotiations between Corvinus and Vlad lasted for weeks, but Corvinus did not want to wage war against the Ottoman Empire, the king's order. His Czech mercenary commander, John Jiskra of Brandes, captured Vlad near Rukar in Wallachia. Vlad was first imprisoned in the city of Belgrade, now Alba Iulia in Romania, according to Chalca Condiles. Before long, he was taken to Visegrad, where he was held for 14 years. No documents referring to Vlad between 1462 and 1475 have been preserved. In the summer of 1475, Stephen III of Moldavia sent his envoys to Matthias Corvinus, asking him to send Vlad to Wallachia against Basarab Laiotă, who had submitted himself to the Ottomans. Stephen wanted to secure Wallachia for a ruler who had been an enemy of the Ottoman Empire, because the Wallachians were, like the Turks, to the Moldavians, according to his letter. According to the Slavic stories about Vlad, he was only released after he converted to Catholicism. Matthias Corvinus recognized Vlad as the lawful prince of Wallachia, but he did not provide him with military assistance to regain his principality. Vlad settled in a house in Pest. When a group of soldiers broke into the house while pursuing a thief who had tried to hide there, Vlad had their commander executed because they had not asked his permission before entering his home, according to the Slavic stories about his life. Vlad moved to Transylvania in June 1475. He wanted to settle in Sibiu, and sent his envoy to the town in early June to arrange a house for him. Mem II acknowledged Basarab Laiotă as the lawful ruler of Wallachia. Corvinus ordered the burghers of Sibiu to give 200 golden florins to Vlad from the royal revenues on September 21st, but Vlad left Transylvania for Buda in October. Vlad bought a house in Pace that became known as Dracula Haza, Dracula's house in Hungarian. In January 1476, John Pongrak of Dingeleg, voivode of Transylvania, urged the people of Brasov to send to Vlad all those of his supporters who had settled in the town, because Corvinus and Basarab Laiotă had concluded a treaty. The relationship between the Transylvanian Saxons and Basarab remained tense, and the Saxons gave shelter to Basarab's opponents during the following months. Corvinus dispatched Vlad and the Serbian Vuk Grgorevic to fight against the Ottomans in Bosnia in early 1476. They captured Srebrenica and other fortresses in February and March 1476. In the Bosnian campaign, Vlad once again resorted to his terror tactics, mass impaling captured Turkish soldiers and massacring civilians in conquered settlements. His troops mostly destroyed Srebrenica, Kuslet, and Zvornik. Mem II invaded Moldavia and defeated Stephen III in the Battle of Valia Alba on 26 July 1476. Stephen Bathory and Vlad entered Moldavia, forcing the Sultan to lift the siege of the fortress at Targanint in late August. Matthias Corvinus ordered the Transylvanian Saxons to support Bathory's planned invasion of Wallachia on September 6, 1476, also informing them that Stephen of Moldavia would also invade Wallachia. Vlad stayed in Brasov and confirmed the commercial privileges of the local burghers in Wallachia on October 7, 1476. Bathory's forces captured Targovist on 8 November. Stephen of Moldavia and Vlad ceremoniously confirmed their alliance, and they occupied Bucharest, forcing Basarab Laiotă to seek refuge in the Ottoman Empire on 16 November. Vlad informed the merchants of Brasov about his victory, urging them to come to Wallachia. He was crowned before November 26. Basarab Laiotă returned to Wallachia with Ottoman support, and Vlad died fighting against them in late December 1476 or early January 1477. According to the most reliable sources, Vlad's army of about 2,000 was cornered and destroyed by a Turkish Basarab force of 4,000 near Snagov. The exact circumstances of his death are unclear. According to Leonardo Botta, the Milanese ambassador to Buda, the Ottomans cut Vlad's corpse into pieces. Bonfini wrote that Vlad's head was sent to Mem II. It was eventually placed on a high stake in Constantinople.